While people are shuffling in, a few things that I will talk about, and just to give you some more information. Tonight we're going to do a little bit about registration, talk a little bit about credits at the high school. Most importantly, kind of work through how to help your student kind of plan out, say your student's going to be in 9th grade next year. Plan out the next 4 years, not just of school, but kind of as life goes, and planning those things out, because high school does come with more responsibilities and things like that. So a part of that is going to be that conversation. It's really good to pair this with career pathways. And if you're not familiar with our career pathways or career pathways in the area, there's a lot of benefits to career pathways that I'll kind of talk through as we go moving forward. But career pathways and registration, we're not actually registering tonight. Maybe what I'll talk about quickly is the timeline for registration. We've done our best to kind of put things on the website and make sure that that stuff is as clear as possible, and it's a moving target. And certainly when we have snow days, it makes things a little bit more complicated. But with the registration schedule and how things go, typically what we do is we go into classrooms twice. When we go in that first time and we share similar information to what we're going to talk about tonight with students. So we've done that with 8th grade at our GEMS. Starting tomorrow, we'll do that with 9th grade, and then next week we're going to start that with 11th and, well, going to be future 11th and 12th graders. So we'll have those conversations once, give them about a week to look through the packets and encourage them to kind of make some good course selections and looking through all the information. And then we'll go through again and have those students register. And when we talk about registration can be confusing in terms of what it actually means. For us, we use registration to fuel our course offerings. So for a lot of times when kids are going to register for classes, what they're doing is they're actually requesting classes to be offered in future years, certainly in the next year. So when students register for classes, it can be part of their schedule, but essentially what it's doing is telling us how many sections of courses we should offer. If there's lots of requests, we offer more sections. If there's not a lot of requests, we don't offer as many sections. So feel free to walk in whenever you guys feel comfortable, it's fine. And certainly right up front, we'll put you up on stage. So in terms of the registration process, this does help us build our course, our master course offerings in terms of the classes that we're going to offer. At that point, when we decide based on numbers, how many courses we can offer, then it becomes part of a student's schedule if it works out. So part of the registration process can be confusing because a lot of kids are like, well, I signed up for this class, but I didn't get it. There's lots of factors that go into which courses end up on student schedules. It might be dependent on hours, depending if there's conflicts with other classes. Many of our electives, because we do offer a lot of electives, many of those electives that we offer are only offered 1 or 2 hours. So it's difficult to fit in every single request that kids have. So we'll kind of talk through that process a little bit so you guys have a better understanding of this and the whole registration process as we go. Before I do anything else, I probably should do some introductions. But in terms of high school staff, I'm Mr. Elson. I'm one of the 4 counselors at the high school. Mrs. Henderson is also here tonight. There's several career pathway leads that will be out in the lobby afterwards just for additional questions and things like that. Mr. Hofstad, our principal, is here also. So again, there's plenty of a wealth of knowledge just in terms of the offerings that we have. So again, if you have questions, please hold on to those at the end. We'll be out in the lobby. You can certainly come up here, ask questions. That's what we want this to be, is just making sure that you get that information. So that's part of the process as well. But introductions for sure is something that I tend to skip. In terms of our goals, these were the goals that we wanted to kind of look at with registration. Making sure that kids get into the appropriate courses is number 1. So a lot of times when kids are looking at courses and certainly going into maybe 9th grade and deciding between advanced English, grade level English, advanced social, grade level social, do I take a study hall, do I not take a study hall? Having that conversation, which we did today, hopefully that was heard, was really about balance. And I'm going to talk a lot about balance tonight in terms of the course offering. So in terms of one-to-one classes, a lot of kids are like, yep, I can handle that hard class. But when you take a step back and you think about all the things that you might need to do in 9th grade, maybe 11th grade, maybe you're driving, you have a job, that's a different workload than just a one-to-one, can I handle this advanced class or not? So again, talking about balance is super important, having that conversation. I think the most important thing and the most important reason that we're doing things like this is to get the information to you guys. Just knowing how hard and complicated it is for me to explain the courses and all the different pathways that you could take and all the different options you have, it's probably mind-boggling for somebody who has no idea what that looks like and how that could play out for their student. So again, a lot of this information is just trying to share with you so it's in front of you so you can kind of make those decisions and kind of make up a plan, at least in terms of what makes the most sense for your student going forward. So if some of these things don't seem like they're kind of hitting you in the face, or we get to 11th grade and it's like, oh, I should have done that, I should have done this. So in terms of those goals, those are our big targets for today, and kind of talking about the things that are going to certainly be more beneficial for you guys when we start talking about those course offerings and all the things that are important to us. So part of it for us, 100%, certainly in talking about pathways. This is just a diagram of how we kind of frame things out with our students and kind of talk about our plan. In terms of registration, in terms of high school, a big part of being in high school is about graduation towards high school. So a lot of the things that we're going to emphasize are how many credits do you need for graduation, how many credits do you need for your departments in terms of your cores, your English, your math, your science, your social. Those are big emphases when we're talking about how many credits you need moving forward in terms of graduation. More so than graduation, we want to make sure kids are taking classes in things that they enjoy as much as possible. So part of this process is really looking at it in 3 steps. In 9th grade, 9th and 10th grade is really about exploring things, trying new options, trying to feel out your interests. Some kids know what their interests are, some kids don't, and that's completely fine. But having an idea of what your interests are can certainly fuel where you're going moving forward. As we get into 10th and 11th grade, and certainly some of 12th grade, we're really trying to get more experience in those classes. So if there's something that we have interest in, whether it's graphic design, healthcare, maybe some nursing stuff, some different things that you might be interested in, your student might be interested in, having some more experience in some upper level classes before we get to essentially 11th and 12th grade, where we're looking at how can we get better at things that we have interest in, how can we get some more exposure and maybe have some capstone opportunities, maybe an internship, maybe an in-depth independent study or an independent class that we're going to be taking that's a little bit more driven towards an IB course. But in terms of those things, we want to make sure that our students are leaving the high school with skill, with some idea of things that they want to, what they might want to do after high school. Certainly the benefit of taking classes in high school is it is free to students. Certainly when we get beyond high school, that's where the money comes in. And if we have time in high school to explore some of those interests, it's worthwhile. So I think a lot of those things kind of factor in. So when we start talking about pathways, pathway is a good thing to compare just in terms of this model, but overall interest in classes that students can be taking is going to be incredibly important. So again, in 9th and 10th grade, we're really trying to focus on what those interests are and how we can move those forward. So we're going to talk a little bit about credits, in terms of credits and what we need. In terms of graduation requirements, I've tried to put this on every guide that we have. If your students in 9th grade or going to be in 9th grade have brought home the yellow packet, I think how many credits you need is on that 3 or 4 times. Same thing with the website, same thing with the registration information that is going to be shared with students. I'll talk about those resources so you guys kind of know what those resources are. But again, the graduation requirements are going to be important to emphasize as we move forward and kind of looking at what's the most beneficial. So in terms of our course, we do have students who need to take 4 years of English, 3.5 of social, 3 math, 3 science. That seems pretty clear. I think when kids get confused is really about the electives and what that means for electives. Our electives can either be an elective course, which is not a core course, or one of the other electives, which would be art, phy-ed, health, or money matters. But also anything beyond the requirements. So if you're going to take additional math, if you're going to take additional phy-ed, if you're going to be in band 1 year, you have your art credit down. If you take it 2 or 3 more years, you're going to have 3 more elective credits. Anything beyond the requirement is going to roll over to an elective. So elective is really one of those things that's not as difficult to scoop as some people might think. But most importantly, we want those electives to be in something that kids have interest in. So again, another reason to kind of look at pathways or be intentional with those courses rather than just taking credit for credit's sake. Most of our students graduate well beyond 23 credit. I think we average about 24 and a half, 25, but there's certainly kids who are taking 26, 27 credits and leaving the high school with a lot of expertise and a lot of experience. So in terms of those things, that's really important just to have an idea of what makes sense for your student. And this kind of leads into a few, at least things to consider and things to think about, is credit is important. Not always getting all of the credit is needed. So again, when we start talking to kids about what makes sense for you in terms of a schedule, that might be including study halls. If we're going to take some advanced classes, if we're jumping into 9th grade, it might be beneficial to have some built-in study time. You don't need to pile on the credit and have a whole bunch of credit to be successful in your classes. So balance is going to be super important. So if we're involved in activities, if we're involved in things inside of school, outside of school, jobs, whatever that might look like, that life balance is a lot more important in terms of what classes we're going to pick so we don't get overwhelmed with the classes that we are currently taking. So again, a lot of times it's balance, but most importantly, when we're talking about challenge, we want to make sure kids are challenged as well. So are they taking enough hard classes? Not just getting easy A's. There's a lot of kids who come in and say, I'm going to take the easy route, I'm going to take grade level courses. They get really good grades, don't necessarily challenge themselves, and that's something that we're hoping to encourage a little bit more often. So I think those things are important. I think the conversation about GPA is infinitely important in how that affects your student long-term and short-term. So we talked about this in classrooms today. GPA is super important to college credit that we offer in the high school. If you're interested in earning college credit, you have to have a certain GPA. That's a 3.0 GPA, which is a B average. So students in 9th and 10th grade, if they want to earn college credit once they get to 11th grade, we got to make sure we're balancing out those courses and making sure that we're taking enough rigor so we can earn B's and be on track for that college credit. But just as important as it is for inside high school, certainly applying to colleges after, looking at military options, employment, we have employers contact us about GPAs and what that looks like for students. That tells people if they're reliable or not. Certainly when we talk about pathways, there's benefit to that, but in terms of scholarships, GPA is certainly beneficial in scholarships. So balance is going to be a really important thing, just kind of looking at the course offerings and making sure that your student feels comfortable with the classes that they take. So I think all these things are really important things to consider. Depending on what benefit you want for your students, some of those things might be a little bit different in terms of that conversation and what that looks like with your student. So with our pathways, we have 8 pathways. And not to talk only about pathways, but this is certainly a good segue into that conversation. But there's 8 pathways that we offer at the high school. We do have a 9th pathway that is our liberal ed, and that is our UMD credit that students can earn the college credit. So in terms of our liberal ed, that is essentially as juniors and seniors, kids can take credits through University of Minnesota Duluth. Those credits can transfer. They transfer anywhere. The big thing to pay attention to is what they transfer in as, but students can walk out of here with nearly 2 years of college paid for just by taking high school credits. And typically those are really well received credit because that is University of Minnesota. So that's one option. And certainly all of these options, students don't just need to pick one. So if they're looking at multiple things, I think this is where we come in and we kind of say, I have no idea where to start. We take classes in some of the things that might be interesting. Maybe we have interest in business, healthcare, construction, manufacturing, and then take a couple classes in those and see if we like it. If we like it, we take more of it. If we don't, we stop taking it. So in terms of those classes, it's really important to kind of get an idea of what those things could look like. What I'll do in a minute or two is I'll walk you through a pathway just to kind of how to plan it out a little bit differently on what requirements. Certainly when you guys get out to the lobby, if there's sheets, those handout sheets, those are embedded in our website as well. So if you didn't get a sheet and you'd like a sheet for some of the pathways, I'll show you where those are on our website. But certainly talking about all the benefits of the pathways, probably the biggest benefit of jumping into a pathway is when students leave the high school, they have direction on what they're interested in. They have direction on something that they want to do, something that they might be now skilled in. So in completion of the pathway, there's a lot of things that go into that. There's taking interlevel courses, certainly on the same model where we talk about explore, experience, excel. So certainly entry-level courses, intermediate-level courses, and then capstone courses that students take to satisfy that career pathway. So a lot of benefits within those in terms of skill and interest, but also benefits in terms of scholarship. Colleges are now issuing scholarships for completion of pathway. We have a lot of students who complete a pathway or take a capstone course, and say it's in manufacturing, say it's in maybe natural resources and ag, and they're offered jobs based on that course completion. and what they're doing in those. So a lot of our internships, I shouldn't say a lot, there's some of our internships that do have direct connection to employment directly after high school. So again, there's lots of benefits to considering a pathway and kind of looking through that pathway. In registration itself, and this is where it gets a little complicated, we don't always know who is interested in a pathway. So if students do have interest in a pathway, you can certainly add those. What you would do is you would register for that pathway, we'd put you in that pathway, and then we would be able to say, are you on track or not? We'd manage your credits, we'd track your credits. If a student doesn't say that they're interested in a pathway, we don't necessarily know if they're trying to work through that pathway or not, so in terms of completion. So when colleges are looking to offer scholarships, we need to make sure that we can say, yep, it's completed, it's done, we put that on their transcript, and then they can get a scholarship for that pathway. A couple other benefits would be if students are interested in a pathway, certainly if we have field trips coming up, we're going to give them information on that. If we have visits in the high school, certainly we have people that come to the high school to target certain classes, but if there's a pathway that kids can be a part of, that's another benefit of being in that pathway. Kids can change that at any time. They can talk to a counselor. That's completely fine. Registration is just one of those opportunities to jump into a pathway. I think a lot of times too, kids are like, I have no idea where to start. We have a platform that we use that's called, it's our Career Connected Learning platform. It's called Zello. It's not the same as the one where you can buy a house. It's not. But it's very similar in terms of the platform that we can use to kind of map out a career planning model. So a lot of the things that we do within Zello are we do some assessments, we look at some careers. This is an easy thing for kids to jump into. 8th grade students do have access to this. And if they have not been shown this platform yet, that will likely come this spring. Otherwise, we certainly use this heavily in our 9th grade classes and 10th grade classes. But one example, students who have access to Zello and can jump into Zello, it's right on their iPad, it's just a home button. And students can jump in and they can look at careers, they can look at specific careers, they can look at career factors, they can take some assessments. And some of those assessments might point them towards different career clusters they can target. So if we're looking at something like engineering tech, this is just an example of one of the careers that you can pull up. It does target not the same as our career pathways, but it does have career clusters. So it gives kids an idea of which career pathways that they should target at the high school if they're interested in that career. Another thing that we do multiple assessments, and this is another way for kids to kind of have an idea of, I have no idea what classes I should take, I have no idea if there's a pathway for me. Some of these assessments that we've done in 9th grade certainly are in terms of the personality style and looking at our favorite clusters. Those are certainly indications of things that we can look at with our pathways. So out of the 6 Holland codes, these are the Holland codes that kids get out of their assessment. If a student is a helper or a builder, certainly those stickers are going to indicate which pathway they might find some interest in. So that's another way that we look at things. And then certainly looking at the career clusters, these are the career clusters that are mapped out in Zello compared to our career pathways and what that looks like and how kids can target those pathways just as well as looking at some of those careers. So again, there's lots of avenues if kids don't have an idea where to start and what that needs to look like. But in terms of the course pathways and career pathways, there's a lot of benefit in starting in 9th grade. Certainly if we have not started in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, there's still time to get those things started. Don't feel like that is a crunch for you, but certainly in 9th grade, there's lots of opportunity to target things in 9th and 10th grade so we can get started on those pathways. So again, some other things to keep in mind with registration. What I've talked about is the grad requirements are super important in kind of planning beyond high school. Talking about the course registration process in terms of your courses doesn't necessarily say just because we've requested it doesn't mean it's something that will be on your schedule. That really depends on the master schedule and if it fits on your schedule, if we have enough seats in those classes. There are certainly Mr. Linder's out here as well, one of our pathway teachers. He's the head of FFA, our FFA chapter, but there are some clubs that require at least participation in one of their natural and ag courses to be a participant in FFA. So there are some other benefits in taking some classes if there's different benefits that you're looking outside of the classroom, whether it's group participation or clubs. In terms of schedule changes, I think a lot of kids come down this time of year just at the end of a semester or at the beginning of a semester and try to change into classes. Typically when we map out a typical schedule, a master schedule, there's not a lot of room for kids to move around. So it's really important with the registration process that kids are intentional with the classes that they pick. They might get them. So that's really important when we're registering for classes rather than just, hey, what are my friends taking, which is fine. But also being more intentional with what I'm interested in and reading the course description rather than just the course title is going to be really important for kids to get placed into the courses that are going to make the most sense, especially if they have to continue with those courses. There are year-long courses versus semester-long courses. Many electives are going to be semester-long. There are also many electives that are year-long. Certainly our core classes are going to be year-long commitments, but things like bands, choir, Photoshop, Spanish, those are going to be year-long commitments. So when kids register for a full year of Spanish, if they register for 2 course numbers, Spanish 1 first semester, Spanish 1 second semester, you're in that class for the full year. There's a lot of things that go into band and choir in terms of responsibilities. That's more of an activity that you are committing to than just a course itself. So making sure that you understand that some of those things are year-long commitments and important for us to kind of consider. The next couple of things I'll talk about, I think I have on the next slide. Okay, so resources. These are all the resources that we have kind of linked in. If your student is going to be in 9th or 10th grade, this is already shared in Schoology. Certainly on our website, those things have been uploaded. But in terms of the resources that are going to be helpful, there's probably 2 major ones. The biggest one is going to be the cheat sheet. They're going to bring home a cheat sheet. I don't think I've seen the 10th grade color yet, but 9th grade, future 9th graders is yellow. So if you've seen that sheet come home, that is a registration cheat sheet for all 9th grade classes. So typically on that sheet is just the classes that are offered for 9th grade with a course title, course number. What students need to consider also is beyond just 9th grade, what classes can I take in 9th grade that are going to give me benefit into 10th, 11th, and 12th grade classes, and certainly beyond those 2. That's not going to be on that cheat sheet. So that cheat sheet is just 9th grade classes. When we take a look at the website really quick, that'll give you a better understanding of how you can kind of plan out your 4 years, depending on what your interests are. The other thing is going to be the course catalog, which I'm talking about with the website. I'll show you that. That should be something that if you have not saved already or taken a look at, that would be worthwhile. Also with Campus, the platform, we will register students in their student campus. I do not believe Parent Portal, I don't think they have access to that. I think it's just student access. So when you are registering at home with your student, if you want to look at their registration, typically what we do as counselors is we go into the classroom, we have them register, we make sure they have enough credits that they've requested, talk about balance, talk about rigor, and then once they submit, that's saved. At that point, until the window closes, which is mid-February, you guys can change things. You can move things around. If you feel like an advanced class is something you want to take on, you can slide that advanced class in. Those are certainly things that are going to be open, but that'll be through the student side of campus, and I'll show you what that looks like quickly. So this is one of the guides that we're going to use, and this is on the back of the packets that students will bring home. But this is how students fill out the registration process so they can put it into campus once we get to registration. I think the easiest thing that's confusing on this is it looks like you're requesting a first semester course and a second semester course load. It also looks like you're requesting hours, which you are not. We are just requesting 14 courses that are offered because we offer 2 semesters of 7 period days. So it's really important to keep in mind, core classes we're going to take year long. So English, math, science, social. We're going to put English down in a course number for semester 1, semester 2. And then when we get down to the bottom, underneath in maybe column 5 and 6 and 7, is really about the electives that students want to take. So if they're going to take Spanish, if they're going to take choir, if they're going to take small engines, if they're going to take personal law, some of those other elective-based courses, going through the course guide and kind of mapping those things out are going to be helpful. Alternates are going to be helpful as well. If a class doesn't fit on your schedule, if the class is full, if the class doesn't get run or is not offered, we're going to look at alternates and try and plug those into your student's schedule. So having enough alternates is going to be helpful and important. And it's good to prioritize those 1 through 4, at least 4 of those alternates, because there's times that we have to stretch on those. If for some reason multiple don't fit on your schedule, then we have to guess. And sometimes I don't guess well. So it's really nice to have more alternates that your student is okay with in the classes that they're hoping to take heading into 9th and 10th grade. And then at the bottom is where you can register for a pathway. It didn't make it onto the 9th grade guide, so if you just want to write it on there, but if you want to register for a pathway, that's not a course. That's just at least a conversation with us that we know that you are planning to enroll into that pathway, and we'll start tracking your credits. So at the bottom, you can just write down a career pathway if you have interest in that, but those all have course numbers as well. This is the application through campus, and this is more confusing than it needs to be. Campus likes to work on a 4-year plan, and we do not. So in terms of the plans that kids go into in 9th grade, we just put in that 9th grade in terms of their courses that they're going to take. And this campus app kind of wants you to map out 9, 10, 11, and 12. You can. The hard part with doing that is sometimes our course offerings change, and sometimes the ones that you've requested are no longer offered. So it's a little bit clunky on that end. But in terms of the classes, students will put these in and we'll walk through that process. But if you're at home with your student, they can pull up campus and it's under academic plan. And then you'll be able to see this stuff probably as soon as Thursday this week. That will be live, so you can look at that with your student. We'll start registering current 8th grade students this week, Thursday and Friday, and then next week with current 9th grade students. So that's going to come up pretty quick.
It doesn't matter what order you register in either, so like don't feel like I got to do it on Thursday so I get the classes. It doesn't matter any time in the window. It's just fine. It's all equal.
Thank you. Yeah, so like all the registration is, once the window closes, everybody's registration just goes into a number of how many requests are for each course. So there's no priority in terms of those. And we did it on Thursday, and we did it on Friday. So in terms of priority, it doesn't look like that either. Thank you, Tennis. Other things that are important, this is the website, this is the course catalog. So this is helpful to kind of look through and look at the courses. Most importantly, this kind of breaks it down in every kind of way that you want to look at it. I think the way that I like to start with it is if you're interested in a career pathway. It's really good to look at a career pathway. Today we'll pick business. In terms of business, these are our steps in terms of the classes that we need to take to complete the pathway. So for students who are interested in business, it's good to start with classes like keyboarding, graphic design, web design, exploring the world of business. Those are all helpful classes for kids to take. And then as we move up and enjoy more of those classes, we can take those upper level courses and move towards those capstone courses, which are really going to be senior led. So in terms of capstones, that might be a business internship. It might be participation in the Business Partners of America club that they have, the BPA club. And then looking at some other options with maybe IB business management. So those are important things just to keep in mind. The difference between some of the pathways is for 9th graders, when we talk about 9th graders coming in, this is a pathway that's friendly for kids to start taking in 9th grade. There are other pathways where most of the pathway courses start in 11th and 12th grade, and that should really change how you think about the electives that you're going to take. So for example, if you're looking at the healthcare pathway, which is a little bit different, the healthcare pathway has a lot of classes in junior year. So certainly in 9th and 10th grade, we're only going to take biology. That's the course that we have that's offered, so we're going to take that anyways because it's required. And much of the career pathway stuff is in 11th and 12th. So that tells me if I'm working with a kid that I want to help them get their Phi-Ed, get their art, get their health, try and target those classes in 9th and 10th grade rather than waiting to do those in 11th and 12th grade and maybe not having space to fit in all of the core courses that they need for their career pathway. So again, that's another way to look at it too. So this is a helpful way just to kind of frame out what classes you might need to take and how you can kind of plan out the other things that you could be looking at. Another benefit would be looking just at grade level. And if we look at grade level, this will kind of walk you through everything in terms of the classes that you're going to take. We're going to take English, we're going to take math, we're going to take science, we're going to take social, and I'll walk you through one by one. The important thing to keep in mind when we look at these is making sure we read those course descriptions and kind of having an idea of what is going to be helpful for your student. So again, with 9th and 10th grade incoming students, there might be a recommendation that's sent to you, which will be linked in campus for students who, based on their first quarter grades and their STAR scores, might be recommended for advanced English, advanced social, or both. If you're recommended for those, you do not have to take them. It's a recommendation. If you're not recommended for them, it's not that you can't take them. You certainly can. But that's certainly something that you want to consider with the workload and going into 9th grade. And certainly in 10th grade as well. But looking at those courses are going to be important. Looking at our math. Kids in middle school right now are really on a track. If you are not in intermediate algebra, you have to take intermediate algebra first. If you're in intermediate algebra right now, you take geometry. Integrated science is the only science that we offer in 9th grade, and then social, there's the option for advanced or grade level. What makes the most sense for kids to kind of look through this and for parents to kind of look through this, when you're looking at these things, there's a couple things that give you some information about what kind of course it is. When we start looking at the course offerings for all the rest of the electives, and this is going to be different between 9, 10, 11, 12, anything that's an orange credit is going to be an art credit. So for kids who don't like music or don't necessarily like painting, drawing, or clay, you can take art in a lot of different classes. So targeting those orange classes and looking at those orange classes, greenhouse landscaping, floral design, certainly some business classes, that's going to be an easy eye check for some of those art credits. The other thing to take a look for and keep an eye on is when we start looking at some of these upper level courses, there are characters after some of these titles that are a little caret, it's a little upward arrow that tells you that that's a prerequisite for another class. Same thing with the asterisk after Design Print 2 that tells you that there's requirements for that course. So in terms of the prerequisites, we want to make sure that we have the prerequisites before we can take an upper level course. And certainly taking Design Print 1 will allow you to take Design Print 2. So those are things to keep in mind just for upper level courses. Also, these are pathway courses, so some of the courses will have banners underneath them. This is both manufacturing and computer science. So if you see a banner, then you know that that course is a career pathway course. And then as you move down and kind of look at the requirements, it will tell you specifically what requirements you need for those courses. Another thing to keep in mind for some kids who are interested in getting to capstone courses, one of these examples might be advanced auto mechanics. So for advanced auto, this is just an example. There's several courses who are similar, but this one's probably on the extreme end. But there are 3 classes that you have to take before you get to advanced auto. So kids who really like cars working on engines. If we want to target advanced auto, we have to take auto mechanics. Before we can take auto mechanics, we have to take either outdoor power sports or intro to auto. And before we can take one of those, we have to take small engines. So if we're on a path for advanced auto, or if we're interested in that, we should really be starting to target small engines as a 9th grader, as a 10th grader. So we can fit those things in so we have time to fit in all the other requirements. So again, we try to lay these things out so you kind of have an idea of how you can plan things out for your students, certainly if they have interest in things and if they're going to move forward with some of those things as well. Other things as well as we get into those upper grades when we start talking about college and the schools and UMD credit. As I mentioned, one of the options, once we get to 11th grade, there's no more advanced English, advanced science, advanced social. Those are all either International Baccalaureate classes or college in the schools. Those are 2 different programs, but they work closely together. International Baccalaureate is a program. Most of our students take a couple classes in an IB program. Many of our students take some CITS classes, which are those UMD credit. For most of our classes at the upper level, those are both IB and CITS, so students get the benefit of IB, which is the most rigorous that we can offer, and there's a weighted grading scale for those, so students who earn an A can get a 4.25 as opposed to a 4.0. And also the CITS UMD credit, so students who are earning a 3.0 GPA can earn college credit in high school. And as I mentioned, these are all the college credits that we offer. We offer 56 currently, and are pretty close to some more of that, and that is by far the most of the UMD credit that is offered in the state. We have a good partnership with them. So again, there's some resources in that. Again, International Baccalaureate, there are some students who really want to target the most rigorous coursework at Grand Rapids High School. This is it. So again, in preparation in 9th and 10th grade, it's really doing well in your classes, taking some advanced classes. It doesn't mean you have to take all advanced classes, but certainly the more advanced classes you take, whether it's English, whether it's social, will put you on track to be more successful in those upper level college courses. Again, so that's something just to keep in mind with how you're kind of planning things out. A couple of things if you wanted to, once we get down that road, if you are interested more in IB, I can show you some more resources. This one right here is just a tracker, so you can track to see if you're on. There's 3 different tiers of recognition within IB. The IB medallion, which is our most prestigious, or the diploma, which is our most prestigious, the medallion and the merit. We can track your progress on those based on the courses that maybe you want to take or the courses you've already taken. But that's another process that we can go through as well. If your student is interested in sports after high school, it is important, vitally important to track if you're on track with your NCAA eligibility. So if you have a student who is an athlete and somebody who has aspirations for Division I, Division II, trying to have an idea of what classes we offer that are NCAA approved, because we do need to make sure that we're on top of that. A lot of times we'll get information from, or a kid in 11th grade might stop in, or mom might email, hey, how do we do this? It's not too late at that point, but it's certainly a lot more work for you than going back in 9th grade and uploading information and trying to figure out which sports you were playing, or which teams, or which clubs. So a lot of that stuff is really helpful to have an idea of if your student has aspirations to be Division I or Division II. Also, the last thing that I'll include, just our contact. So again, tonight, you might not get all of your answers, and you might have some answers, at least at some questions. When you guys leave here or are talking to other families or whatever you guys are doing at home, there might be other questions. So in terms of contacts, in terms of our counselors, our department heads, as well as our career pathway leads, just right on that website for us are all the contact information for those people. So again, if we're not talking to those people tonight, or if we have additional questions, there's certainly opportunities to connect with them and have conversations with them just to make sure that you and your students have at least a good guideline of what you're interested in, and how we can make sure that all of the things that as we move through, not just 9th grade, 10th grade, but as we move through the 4 years of high school, that you have a little bit better understanding on those things. So not to be too quick and not to cut it off too quickly, but I think I want to be mindful of our time. Certainly as we head out, if you have questions, we will be around, Mrs. Henderson, Mr. Hofstad, myself, and career pathway teachers out there as well. Was there anything else?
Healthcare and
Healthcare, NAT and egg,
and then general career pathways.
yes, so if you have more questions about some of those pathways, you can certainly connect with us if there's pathways that aren't represented tonight, or even general questions. But we just want to make sure you have the most information possible. Again, all of this stuff is on the registration website. You can access everything that I shared with you. Everything your student has will be shared up on the website. They have access through Schoology. They'll be bringing papers home. So there's going to be multiple resources for all of that information. So I do appreciate all of you coming tonight. I think one more ask that I will have is the more that you can talk about all the great offerings that we have at Grand Rapids High School, that is probably more helpful than a bunch of Blackboard messages that we send out and all the things that we put up on the website. So if you've had a good experience, if there's others who are reaching out and kind of asking questions, please direct them to us or have that conversation with them, because that's super helpful, and I appreciate all you guys coming this evening.
And if there's anything that you can take away is have your kid come with that thing filled out when they come for registration. And if they lose things, have them take a picture of it with their iPad so they can just reference it.
Thank you. Thank you guys very much.